Okay, I'm actually sitting on Shady's dog bed with him right now, so it's gonna be a little bit of a weird video trying to film him without filming me. So I'm back on the Stauffer situation. I really, I don't know, I started watching Spill's videos on them. They're doing like I think a 3-part episode or something, a 3-part video about the Stauffers, and it's just reminding me of like all the things that have gotten me so into this situation, like so invested in what is happening regarding their adoption. And as I mentioned in my other video, I do have a background working with children in foster care and adoption, and I do have a degree in marriage and family therapy. I have a master's degree. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. The thing that, like, really got me to make another video on this situation, because I wasn't sure that I was going to make another video on this, was that when I was watching Spill's videos, I really don't like seeing the Stauffer family like on video. It's the strangest thing. I have like a weird visceral reaction to it, and it's not like Micah's fucking gorgeous. She has a great, like, soft, sweet voice. She's always talking, like, so soft and nice and everything. And that's all well and good. But I think that the reason why I don't really like it is that it poignantly reminds me of a parody. Like, there is a YouTube channel called JK Studios, and they have like a reoccurring episode called Loving Life, and it's so funny, and it's like a series, like it's a parody of like family mommy bloggers and stuff like that, and social media influencers, and it's just, he's being so cute, and it's just like it's really hilarious. And there's one specific actress on there that actually kind of looks like Micah. Like, she's also like a tall blonde lady with like a longer face, and she's also like beautiful and everything, and it's just like almost, look at this crazy boy. I can't even get him in the frame because he's laying in my lap. It's almost creepy how like similar they come off, and it's a parody video. Like, it's a parody of what's supposed to be mommy bloggers, and it just reminds me so much of her. And so it's like, I don't know, I can't watch her. Like, it's so, like, it gives me such a weird feeling. But some of the things that stood out to me about that Spill put in her first videos was like the fact that the Stauffers were open to any diagnosis, and that's kind of weird. Like the fact that she talks about kind of like seeing Huxley's face in a picture and being like, that's him, that's my baby, that's the one. And it's like, okay, I understand like that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but is that the most responsible way to bring a child into your family? No, you have to really be real with yourself. You really have to like reality check yourself. Oh my God. Oh, look at this. Look at him. He's bad. He's biting me. You bite me? Boy. How you gonna bite me? You really have to like give yourself a reality check about this kind of stuff. Like, what am I actually able to handle? And I just don't think that Micah and her family and her husband James were ever to that point where they were like, we really need to like sit down and be like, what is our capacity in this situation? Because it is difficult to pick somebody to bring into your family. Like, you know, even when you're a, you know, I hate comparing the two, but it's the closest thing I have to having adopted a child is bringing an animal into your family. I only have pets. I don't have any children. and I'd actually, I think one of the things is that, like, I'd really love to adopt in the future. Me and my husband have spoken about it, like, since, you know, the past, like, 10 years that we've been together. We both really, really want to adopt. So, like, when I adopted this dog, right, I went in and I adopted a different dog, and he was in my house for 3 days, and I just realized he wasn't a good fit for my family because I have cats. There's one of them right there sleeping on the couch. And the other dog, who was a very sweet dog, who, like, instantly, like, was, like, very attached to me, and then was very scared of my husband. He was scared of, like, anybody. He was just, it wasn't the, you know, my husband's situation. It was actually, and this dog was scared of everything. I cried so much when we brought him back to the shelter. But it was because he wasn't safe to be around my cats. So I had to bring him back to shelter, but it took 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, it took 3 days for me to go, oh, this animal is not a good fit for my family. And I think that's one of the big issues with international adoption, is that, you know, there are people who go and you know, they're very real with themselves when they go, and they go to pick up a child, and they come home without a child because they realize once they get there how difficult it's going to be, and they realize, like, maybe this specific child isn't going to be the right child to be in my family. And that's a very responsible decision to make. It's heartbreaking to know that Huxley was in their home for, 3 years, and then they decided that he wasn't a good fit. Like, it's just, it's very, very strange, and it's, generally when these things happen, when not a foster, but an adoption falls through, it is within, you know, weeks to maybe months. It's very rare that it takes, like, 3 years to come to that conclusion. So I think just her mentioning, like, oh, I saw his face and that was it, and I was open to any diagnosis, and it's a very unrealistic way to think about adoption, especially of a child. Like, we're talking about a human child. We're not talking about a cat or a dog. This crazy animal. And this dog was crazy. I'm going to do a video on his adoption story and how he was as a puppy, because it's very interesting. But anyway, I think that's something that people don't realize, and if you do research into this, you'll find that this is the case. Any child coming from an orphanage, a foster care system, is going to be delayed. They are going to have delays. Unfortunately, that is the case that we are finding, is like 9, you know, I don't want to give a percentile on it, but the vast majority of these kids are going to have delays regardless of, you know, how good they were treated in the foster care or adoption situation, because they've been institutionalized. That's just the way that it is. Children they do not thrive necessarily in these situations. And then when you're coming from a different country, it's even higher. There was a clip that I saw where Micah was, or no, it wasn't, it was a clip from an article where she was talking about how when they were adopting the baby, that she was told all these things about him, that he knew a couple words, and he knew how to write Chinese characters and all these things, and that, oh, they were lied to and this wasn't true. If you were told that, you should have been extremely, extremely skeptical of the situation. That this, because he was a baby when they brought him home. I think he was under 2. So even for a child growing up in, like, a home with, you know, a family, like, if they are 2 years old and they are writing, that's ridiculous. That is incredible. But the fact that you knew that this child was in an orphanage, institutionalized, even in a foster care situation, and you've thought that, you're gonna be a little bit like delusional, honestly. Like that, those are some high levels. And a lot of it has to do with trauma, right? Children who are put into these situations are traumatized, and there are specific focuses that you can take in the mental health field that can deal with even infant mental health. We don't even talk about infant mental health a lot, but it is absolutely something that can affect a child. Things that happen to you in infancy can be traumatic and can affect you for the rest of your life. And when a child is ripped away from its family, it's extremely traumatic. And then to have that happen all over again I would say a much more extreme way, because let's say Huxley was saying a few words in I don't know what province of China he was from, but let's say Mandarin. Let's say he was saying a few words. Suddenly he's with a family that doesn't look like his, doesn't cook the same food, doesn't smell like his, doesn't speak the same language. Like, it would be absolutely a huge level of trauma happening to this child because of it. And I'm not saying that it's horrible for people to have international adoptions. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that it does bring about a level of trauma that people might not realize when they are going and looking into international adoptions. And something I wanted to talk about was Huxley and Micah talking about how he was very, very obsessed with food. Look at this dog. He's so crazy. He's like playing around. And his obsession with food, and how he had reactive attachment disorder and autism and everything else. There is a concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is something that, I learned about when I was working with children in foster care and children in a shelter situation, because I did an internship where I worked with children who were in a children's specific shelter. And so the way that the concept works is it's kind of like that your needs are kind of like a pyramid. And at the very, very bottom are your basic physiological needs, right? You need food, you need water, you need sleep. Your basic base physiological needs. And those need to be met in order for you to kind of start building upwards in the pyramid. So the next step on top of that is safety. Children who are in the foster care system, are adopted, are, put into families, they have a really hard time feeling safe. They do. They have a really, really hard time dealing with the feeling of not being safe, because their life has been so turbulent, and there's been such a lack of consistency that it is very, very difficult for these young little babies to feel safe. And only after you deal with the issues of, number one, this child was always hungry, apparently. And when, at least the organization that I was with, we definitely had kids like that. And that's not uncommon for children in any adoption situation, and especially in international adoption, to just constantly be feeling the need for food. It's a comfort thing. It is also, you don't know the background of this child, how much food availability was to them, and so it is very important to address that need. It is very important to make that child feel like they constantly have access to food so that they can eventually feel safe. And it's only after dealing with these your basic physiological and your need for safety that you then can kind of start building on relationships. You can start building on love, connection, relationships. And we know from what Micah has said that this was one of the major issues that Huxley had was connection and, you know, feeling bonded and feeling safe. And it's horrifying to hear her talk about the little baby in this situation. And, you know, she even spoke about how, like, it was her husband who became the kind of safe space for the little baby, for the adopted baby. And it comes off like a little bit like she was jealous. And, like, I get that. Like, that is, you know, she was the one who pushed for the adoption. She was the one who found him. She was the one who did all these things. And so she did probably feel like a level of jealousy that, like, the little baby, the adopted baby, was connecting more with her husband. But at the same time, you're an adult. Like, you have to at least be like, oh, thank God he's connecting with somebody. Thank God that this little scared child is finding some comfort in this situation. Like, you're the adult in this situation. And you hear that jealousy again when she made that comment about Huxley wanted to be rehomed. He wanted to. We saw in the visitations and stuff we had with other families that he always picked other people over us. Like, that comes off really weird, and that is not uncommon for little kids to, like, go into a situation and, you know, pick new people, novel things over something that they know, especially, like, they don't have any background in who that person is. That person has never had to discipline that child. That child has never had to... It's like having a new toy versus an old toy. Like, yes, you might have a sentimental, you know, connection with your old toy, but if you're put into a room with the old one versus a new one, and you don't know if you're going to get to play with that new one ever after this, you're going to go for that new toy. You're going to want to play with it. I had that situation happen to me when I was doing visitation with children, you know, supervised visitation, where I had to tell the kid, like, hey, they'd ask me, like, hey, can you come over and play with me? And their mom would be sitting right there, and I'd have to be like, no, sorry, like, you know, right now is a specific time for you to spend time with your mom. And it's not to be offensive to that child's mother. It's just that I'm somebody new and fun that the child doesn't know and sees me as something fun. Like, it has nothing to do with who that child wants to be with forever. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous assertion to make. And I don't know. It's like she's searching for something, or she's just, like, trying to confirm her own bias, because she had already probably made the decision, like, I don't think that this child is good for or fits into my family, and I just don't think that it's going to work out, so I'm just going to look for anything to confirm that for me. And, you know, that might have been one of those things. And on top of all this, like, from what I understand, it was... You're just gonna look at his paws in the air. Sorry, I cut out for a minute. And something else that not a lot of people are talking about is the fact that she had another baby, and it was after she had this baby, and she's mentioned that this new biological baby that she had is the most difficult child she's had to deal with, the most difficult infant that she's had to deal with. And these transitional periods in families are the hardest times. They are the hardest times for families, and that's when the most, when we're going to see more issues popping up. So, and then on another note for her family, I know I'm jumping around a little bit at this point, is her youngest daughter. From the few clips that I've seen of Huxley and this youngest daughter, it is heart-wrenching to think that they are separated now, because you could really see that they were very bonded. They were very close, and now they're separated, and that's real. That's one of the hardest things to think about in this situation. And I can really relate to that little girl, because I have a cousin who I grew up with, and we shared a room, and it was for a couple years that she lived with me and my family. You know, she's my cousin, but she very much so grew up like a sister to us. And even after she moved back in with her family overseas, we would still see each other like every summer and things like that. But it was actually a really difficult period for me when she went to move back with her family. It was very, very painful. So I can't imagine what this tiny little girl is going through. I was already older at that time, so I understood. I can't imagine that this little girl really understands what happened to this little boy who was her brother. It's so sad to think about. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I really wanted to make a point to talk about this because it really bothers me, is people, not Spill, I'm talking about other people. If you know the case, and if you're somehow stumbled on this video, you've definitely seen these videos where people are analyzing Micah and saying that she's a narcissist and all this stuff. Take all that shit with a grain of salt, because it is really not okay to be trying to diagnose and analyze people via videos. It's really messed up, and it's really unprofessional, and it really just rubs me the wrong way when I see people saying like this and that. She's got narcissistic personality disorder. Number one, the vilification of narcissistic personality disorder, specifically on YouTube, you know I'm talking about the Shane Dawson documentary and everything like that, is disgusting. This is a personality disorder just like any other personality disorder, just like any other mental illness. These people did not ask to be narcissists. They did not wake up one day and be like, I'm going to be a narcissist. That's fucked up to vilify them because of that. Does it excuse bad behavior? Absolutely not. No mental illness excuses you being an asshole. None of them. If you are borderline personality disorder, people are abused by people with borderline personality disorder. People are abused by people with narcissistic personality disorder. People are abused by people with depression and anxiety. It is not the diagnosis that makes the difference, okay? Yes, you're going to be showing symptomology that is different, but to blame and to vilify a mental illness is honestly disgusting. And nobody on the internet should be saying those kinds of things about Micah. Can we say that she made mistakes? Absolutely. Can we say that she probably did not bond with this child? Probably. Can we say that she might show certain symptoms? Here's the diagnostic criteria from the DSM-5, and here are the things that I'm noticing. Maybe we can say those things. But to vilify narcissistic, you know, you can, let's be honest, a lot of people are vilifying Micah and saying she's the bad guy in this situation. Okay, fine. If we're going to do that, I guess as a community, that's how it's going to be. I personally do not think of her as a villain. I think of her as a deeply flawed person who made a lot of fucking mistakes and who needs to be, I very, very much so hope that her and her family are seeking help. But I'm not gonna sit around here and be like, she's a fucking villain. She did this on purpose because she's a narcissist. That is fucked up. And now I'm heated. Like, I think that the handling of this situation by the YouTube community could be better. I don't think that diagnosing people and vilifying a mental illness is really what we should be fitting to do around here. I think that we should be talking about mistakes were made. This is not an appropriate mindset to have when you're going into an adoption situation, and giving people the right information so that they can go in informed and not making decisions purely out of impulse, or because let's just say like this was an impulsive thing for her. Okay. It was impulsive. She needs to get certain mental health therapies and stuff in order to address the fact that she feels that that was an appropriate decision to make and that she couldn't be realistic. Okay, that's fine. But I really do not think that because this is the narrative that a lot of people are trying to spin, that she adopted a child from China, brought him over, put him into her family, spent 3 years babying him, taking care of him, changing him, feeding him, dealing with all of the just a toddler in general has, you know, their own situations that are difficult. And then on top of it, he has all these other, you know, traumas and issues. I do not think that she did that on purpose and then was like, I'm just going to return him if things get too hard. There is nothing in me that thinks that most, or if any, people are capable of that kind of behavior and that kind of forethought and that kind of sinister thinking. I do think that she made mistakes. I do think that she was impulsive and was not real with herself in this situation. But to try to spin a narrative that this was all done purposefully so that she could lose all of her sponsorships and lose pretty much her entire platform, and probably her husband's platform is going to suffer from this too. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I don't think that I think people are just trying to turn her into a villain and trying to make sense of this, and it's just... I think the people are taking it a step too far. Shady, come here. Come here. Come. He's like, no, I'm drinking water. All right, finish your water. So yeah, my house is a mess right now. It's quarantine, don't judge me. I really hope that people can... I really hope that the laws catch up with family vloggers and that certain measures are taken to protect children. And I really hope people can be more real with themselves when it comes to adoption and international adoption. And I really hope people can just stop trying to diagnose people on the internet with mental illnesses. Shady, can I have your paw? Oh, you're so sweet. Sit. Good boy. Paw. Oh, give me your paw. Give me that paw. Paw. Good boy. Say bye. Sweetness.